that time when I talked about falling behind MPD's line, I remember because I had been kind of shielded away because I was holding those stairs. So I wasn't able to really see what was going on over here. When I fell behind that line and I can just remember my breath catching in my throat because what I saw was just a war scene. It was something like I'd seen out of the movies. I couldn't believe my eyes. There were officers on the ground, they were bleeding, they were throwing up, they had, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood.
Officer Caroline Edwards testifying the January 6th committee hearing, revealing a lot of the evidence that they got from that day when Donald Trump's MAGA soldiers ran up on the Capitol attempting a coup of the country. She talked about the devastating factor, and this is what I was talking about a minute ago. It looked like a war zone, something out of a movie. You couldn't imagine this could ever happen at the US Capitol, but we have politicians that continue to downplay it. So when she came with her testimony, this was one of the aspects of what they're looking to show. This was serious. Let's let her continue.
It was carnage. It was chaos. I can't even describe what I saw. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that as a police officer, as a law enforcement officer, I would find myself in the middle of a battle. I'm trained to detain, a couple of subjects and handle a crowd, but I'm not combat trained. And that day, it was just hours of hand-to-hand combat, hours of dealing with things that were way beyond any law enforcement officer has ever trained for.
If nothing else, that could potentially be inspiration to some more of these insurrectionists and folks that think they can run into the Capitol building and take over the country in the name of Donald Trump. Let's not forget that part, because that's the entire thesis behind this. There's a reason why they ran these in prime time, so people can know the reality versus what's being told. It couldn't get repackaged on Fox News, which of course they tried to do as well the entire time. One more aspect of this. She was talking about the late Officer Brian Sicknick as he died shortly right after the attack, and her interaction with him and what she saw on his face when he wasn't feeling so good. Let's watch that.
All of a sudden, I see movement to the left of me, and I turned, and it was Officer Sicknick with his head in his hands, and he was ghostly pale, which I figured at that point that he had been sprayed, and I was concerned. My cop alarm bells went off, because if you get sprayed with pepper spray, you're gonna turn red. He turned just about as pale as this sheet of paper. And so I looked back to see what had hit him, what had happened, and that's when I got sprayed in the eyes as well. I was taken to be decontaminated by another officer, but we didn't get the chance because we were then tear gassed.
Think about the fact they went through seeing her fellow officer looking like he's damn near death, and then looking to then have herself get cleared and get hit with more pepper spray. It's or tear gassed. Rayvon, it's like, again, I have thoughts about the optics of this, but I want your thoughts about what she was saying, the content of what was going on that day.
Yeah, I mean, all I can think about is conservatives saying that, they back the blue, that blue lives matter, because those are the people who were there at the Capitol that day. The people who every time they hear that the cops shot an unarmed black child, that they should have just complied, that you should respect law enforcement. And then here they are pepper spraying, tear gassing these Capitol police officers, brutalizing them, beating them, knocking them to the ground. She was described, she was slipping in pools of her coworkers' blood. It's just such a stark difference between the rhetoric that they use when it comes to police officers and then how they actually treated them in this instance. It's ridiculous and it is so gruesome. And her descriptions of the event, I think, do a really good job at countering the narrative that conservatives have been pushing, that this was not a violent event, that they just sort of walked right in and they were allowed to go in. The cops let them go right into the Capitol. They were met with no opposition and they just sort of walked around, right? Like she's describing a war zone.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's something with the optics here. This is my last thought on this because we had the other officers after January 6th went down. They told their stories. I'm blanking on the larger guy's name, but there was Fazone, Officer Fazone, I believe. He's also now on CNN. He has the neck tattoos, and there's the large black dude with the bald head. Those were the first cops that we saw as the ones describing how horrific that day was. And they were met with ridicule from the opposing party and also conservative pundits. I can't believe it because those optics for those two men with the types of look that they knew that their followers could go, but that's just a big black dude. Oh, but that's just a white guy with neck tattoos. Who can really believe them? There was surprises with the January 6th hearing just on its first day, and this was one of them. Nobody had heard about Caroline Edwards, or if they had, she wasn't put in front of a committee like this to tell her story. A younger white woman with blonde hair. There's optics involved with this. And it's disarming some people's normal assumptions and biases when they want to say, but that was just someone that I would actually relate to. Maybe that's the change that'll happen as part of them looking to reach out to other folks who maybe were buying the BS that was coming from the Republican Party.